So we're going to go through a couple of examples and do all the domains first. Then we're going to do all the ranges. Then we'll talk about if it's a function or not. So remember, domain, we're looking on your x-axis. So we're going from left to right, trying to figure out where our graph is. So we're looking to see where our graph starts and stops. So sort of like an inequality, this specific graph is from here to here. So that's where your domain lies. So what's that far left or most least x value to the greatest or largest x value? So right here, that x value is -6. Gotta count it twice sometimes. And then comma. Yes, it zigzags. I see there's some points here, but you've got graph all the way until that point right there. So that x value is +6. We've got closed dots at both ends, so we're going to include it with brackets. Okay, so it doesn't matter what happens in between. From start to finish, left to right, where is the graph? So similarly, if you guys look at B, your graph is from here to here. So what's that far left to the far right x value? So the far left, the lowest or least x value is -7. And then comma, where does it go to? All the way over here. +5. Look at your dots to see which values are included. So we would include -7. We are not including 5. Letter C is a little weird because your graph is just right there. So as far as the domain goes, like it doesn't go left or right at all. Everything stays at that one x value of -5. So it is possible for you to have just one x value. Like there's not a single point on that line where the x value is not -5. I know that we've got open dots, but that's going to actually go with our range. So every single one of those points on that line is -5. That's it for the domain. There's no other x values to include. So if we look at our circle here, so yes, it goes around, but from left to right, there's nothing past this point on the left. There's nothing past this point on the right. So this is what we're talking about as far as being like part of the graph. Like, so there's no dots necessarily, but because it's part of the graph, we are going to include whatever values are here. It's only the open dots that need a parenthesis. So the far left point is -4 and it's centered. So then our far right point will be +4. But just farthest left, where does your graph go? To the farthest right, where does your graph go? -4 to 4. Let's do I yet. So same thing, looking on your x-axis, graph from here to here. So which two x values is that? So looks like -3 is the far left. And then +4 is the far right. Open dots. So we are not including those values, just everything up to those values. So domain, left to right, looking at those x-axis to get those x values. We're going to go now and do the range. So we kind of have to switch gears a little bit, because now you guys are looking at the y-axis. So we're looking bottom to top, because y would be least to greatest, bottom to top. So we're looking at our graph. Okay, the lowest point is right there. Yes, it zigs, it zags, it's got some points here and there, but the highest spot it goes is right there. So those two y values is where your range starts and stops. So the lowest point here is 0, right on the axes or right on the axis, and then your highest or greatest y value is positive 6. So we're just looking for the lowest and highest place that your graph goes. So for B, this right here is your lowest point. You're going to go across, find where that is on the y-axis. This is your highest point. Find what y value that is. So the lowest or least y value is -3. And it is a closed dot there, so we're going to include it. The highest y value has an open dot there at +1, so parenthesis. Looking at letter C, we've got graph from here to here. So that lowest or least y value is -2. And then we've got graph all the way up here to +1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Closed dots at both, not including. So you just have to pay attention to if we're looking at the x values or the y values. So just like, are we looking across or are we looking up and down? So range is always up and down. So our circle here, lowest y value, greatest y value. So 1, 2, 3, so -4. And then +4, both included. And then the last example, letter I, lowest point right here at 0. We've got a closed dot, so a bracket. And then our highest point right there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Open dots there, so not including. So, range, we're looking up and down. Domain, we're looking left to right, because we're looking at your x values. Range, we're looking at the y-axis and your y values. So last thing we need to talk about is if a graph is a function or not. So again, if you don't have ordered pairs to just look to see if x values repeat, what you're doing is checking for that vertical line test. So it is not a function if you can draw a vertical line and hit the graph more than once. So if we look at letter A, or example A, when you guys draw that line, that's like a bunch of vertical lines. So when you guys draw that vertical line, draw it down, only hits one time. So that is good. So that would be a function. Example B, draw a vertical line, only hits once, good. So, letter C, it's a little weird. You would not have one like letter C on your test or your quiz. But if you draw a line down through there, it's literally on top of it. So, it's hitting an infinite number of times. So, this would not be a function. All of those points have repeating values of x equaling -5. So, not a function for letter C. D. Draw a vertical line, hits twice. So that one is also not a function. We're going to just write no. And then letter I hits once, so that is good. So that would be a function. There's no x values there that are going to repeat. All right, so we'll talk about the ones with the arrows tomorrow.